She already. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Now, what I always ask if, are you a walker? You or like to stay at the podium?
I'll probably stay there.
Okay, perfect. Second question, if a Zoomer comes in and has a question, you're able to see them if I do a certain thing, like this. This is you, this is what they see. But do you have any slides that will be covered?
No.
Okay, good. So we'll just go forward with this. And I'll just have to like this. Loading pointer. Yeah. And then. Okay. And then you have a nice little. And like this. Focus.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
You're very well. So the Zoomers will come in like that.
Yeah.
And if it gets too busy, we'll just close that and go forward. So you can see where, you see where you are.
Yep.
And you can walk, this is the screen, and you can look at the screen and talk to them, but they're being fed right here. But if you want to be more personal, if you just face that as a person, they'll see you face that. All right.
It's such a poor.
Very interesting. I've never gone to a town meeting before.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it is, it was. And, you know, you guys,
entertaining.
yeah, I mean,
And.
it was very, very well run, cordial. I went to the informational meeting as well, which was actually more contentious than
Oh, I
the
know.
town meeting.
He's doing a nice job on nice fishing meeting. Harwich. I usually never go to Harwich.
Yeah.
I'm always working the same people.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't do electronic voting.
Really?
They actually got, they passed the money for next year, but they never do.
You're elected to represent.
Because every time you have the, wastewater, if the moderator can't clearly tell if they get the majority, then they gotta do the scale, and then they gotta tell us. So like we're asking it, call the tell us now, and they call it out, they count. So like, depending on how many times. And 60 articles, for some reason, I always have 60 articles. You go on, it's just, my wife, and it's always 2 minutes, it's always 2 minutes.
I feel like there's.
My wife, she didn't get home till.
It was the same day?
Like, I was already home, I'm in bed, and she went to the article when she got home. The second article of the night was.
important. It's not important.
And it was the capital.
Uh-huh.
The end of the night, there was another article, which was the article during the 7th month. Pages are. And it finally dawned on somebody. That this is, you already, this is just to accept the money from the source.
Right,
I'm finding not.
Here or someone from the staff.
I know.
Go around services.
I know, that's what the informational, exactly.
It's just so, it's stuff like that. Just like, oh, gets everyone frustrated, they don't want to do it.
I know, and you need them there.
That's
to get
why
a
I
quorum.
understand
Are
why
you
it's
staying?
very
Yeah.
efficient town meeting. So
You go to town meeting then?
And you certainly had a good venue. At the auditorium.
I hadn't been in there yet. That was first time.
So I want to play, are you a baseball player or if you're not at all?
Yeah.
I would love to play for football. You're not good enough for a day.
No, no more.
Understand. Oh, yeah?
Nice piece of property, so we made a ball field
Exactly.
and, used to play every.
Oh,
Right, metal bat,
oh, really? Cool.
metal bat.
Yep, yep,
It's awesome.
it is.
We had, we had a backstop, we used to play
Yeah.
for the backstop.
Yep.
We had, netting, we put up in our basement, where we put netting, we get lights up in the tree. Every Friday.
Hey. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
was,
But was it, I couldn't play, you know, you see them on YouTube. I like watching them, but the pitchers are like pitching really fast.
yeah.
And they go like, I can't hit that ball. I just rather go like batting practice,
I
just like
never
cramping.
did.
Um,
But the metal bats.
Yes.
Are
it's a,
awesome.
yeah, it's basically, it would regulate. I mean, it would be sort of like, you know, we used to sometimes play with those big bam bats, you know, makes the ball go far, but the wiffle ball, was invented in Connecticut. Frisbee and I think I think they're both named like snakes, but it's like that curves. Okay, man, it's all. That's what town meeting.
Did he went?
Yeah.
According to plan, so.
That's good.
We got you.
Hard and fun. Get a lot of good people in the mountains, get a lot of good people in the offices. They'll get it done. Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe those exercise classes, they don't know, I should, cause I was, went outside, mowed the lawn, took a shower, ate lunch, and now I'm here, there's no money. I still work out. I still work out, still have breath. But I'm here. People are always busy. Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. See you in a while. We see the same people at the same places all the time, don't we? We do. We do. Hello, Cheryl. Hello. That's good. Say what? I wish more residents would be interested, of course. Yeah, similar to town meeting, that's some of the things that come up and people have to put it like, is he? Oh, that meeting. I just haven't run into the information, we've been around, it's been talked about, it's been in news. Great job. Yeah, it's a surprise, like, early came out. I didn't say anything, but, I know, that is new. I know, you're absolutely right, Cheryl. Oh, all right. I don't know, you can't comment, I don't know.
As far as I know, every single avenue is.
Absolutely.
Yes, you're right. I say like 50% of people don't know. So,
Yeah, and then they'll come to our meeting. Yeah. And I don't know. Just go in, see that everybody's going I don't think it's, oh dear, and it was time, it was time, it was time to
We're happy now. Right, no, I know that, no one likes that.
Yeah. Both on Sundays and to dinner.
Sure, 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 sure.
All that stuff.
You know, the late part, all.
Yes. No big.
Nothing major.
You have a, top.
This is my best.
Thank you.
It's just a-
Thank you.
I haven't announced it yet, but white smoke, whatever.
Right.
White smoke, now it's back all day.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I just started. Yes.
Yeah. I get out of my car, like, and it's never come.
Right.
But it's, but I know that to.
Yes. You want to see it still?
I'm sure. Why that's the player.
Still fly.
That might be somebody.
Sunday where we have.
A lot of times they'll block those bids like that, or you can see that.
Oh, maybe I think that's thing about.
Yeah.
Did they decide when that
Yeah, there should be a. The road of these events.
Yes. Make an appointment to have John's or someone come and show you, because they will come and show you. They tell me that you could tell me.
Okay, maybe have him come and then write up the instructions, get what you show you, whatever suits his John, versus John, in agreement.
Oh,
This lady is having trouble doing it.
Oh, really?
Contact you, and they won't.
Yeah, I mean, what happened? Have you ever been successful with it? Okay.
Right. They go to look for it, now somewhere here, and that's.
Okay, I can certainly show you, I'm done, and that's actually my job. So that's the whole idea, it's literally, I can get it.
Yeah, good.
And then you go, and you register, and you got it, and you go for about 10, maybe less than 10 minutes. And you spend something that looks like this. And you register. Rules and registration
Really.
without fear.
That's right. I remember.
Correct.
I see the computer registry.
Yeah. You enjoy it. Oh, you can try it, we can run. You can, this is that. Yeah, okay, good. Oh, good, yeah. It's, I can get my cell phone number or if you ahead of time, you can let it test. I can start any of these. Right now, I'm muted and I can't.
Oh, really? They just.
Okay, well, we recorded all of it, so you can look at it in arrears. That's the whole idea. So right now, it's, I'm going
That's
to.
just something you can't quantify, right? And you can't quantify.
Sorry.
I think we'll start. Okay. Hello, all. My name is John Klimzak. I'm the hybrid program, administrator for the COA, and the Council on Aging is very happy to be sponsoring the Eastham Focus Series, where we have Eastham specific information being shared. And today we have Paul Ladd, which is who is the Eastham's Community Development Director. Many of you may have seen him on the town meeting. He's a fantastic gentleman, informed, and he's gonna have a presentation and he welcomes your questions. So without any further ado, I'll introduce Paul, and Zoomers, when you want to ask something, just simply unmute yourself and talk, and Paul will hear you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be back here with you. Thanks for coming out. Hello, to everybody out in Zoom land. So happy to be here. Just thought I would kind of give an overview of a few different things going on with the zoning, the strategic plan, and some quick things on affordable housing. Did everyone go to town meeting? I know I saw some of you there. All right, so some of this will be a recap, but it's good now that the zoning bylaw got put in place. It's good to recap to actually make sure everyone understands what we all actually agreed to. So as we know, there was a considerable amount of new zoning proposed. All of this really has to do, yeah, sorry, John, I thought.
Yep.
That would cover it. Put on the other side, I don't think I have.
No, it's fine.
Yep, perfect, thank you. Hi, welcome. So at the town meeting, as we know, we had several zoning amendments. Really, all of these have to do with the Northeast Dam commercial district, that area along Route 6, and a little bit onto Massasoit Road. What we're trying to do is revamp that zoning so that it reflects the planning efforts that we've been doing over many years. So we've been doing strategic planning, which we'll talk about in a minute, housing planning, wastewater planning, all sorts of plans. Tea time in Town Center Plaza. What we found is that the zoning that was in place doesn't necessarily reflect the goals and the recommendations on all these various plans of what the community wants to see. So we had to go back and kind of tune that up, make sure that the uses would work, and also kind of look towards the future to make sure that the type of development that's going to occur on the town-owned properties, but also the majority of the area is private property. So future development is going to reflect what the character of Eastham, our local community. So, and what we're seeing here is just really why the district, the Eastham Corridor Special District, why it was developed in the first place. Many of you remember that was really a reaction to some potential development from some chain stores and things that really wasn't going to be favorable to the town. So we put these regulations in place to kind of be able to have some control. But like I said, we kind of realized it didn't have enough teeth in it in certain areas, and it lacked with some clarity. So we wanted to make sure that long-term, as redevelopment occurs, we're trying to work towards a more traditional New England village center in that Northeast end. It's never going to be exactly the stereotypical like a lot of towns, because we don't have that. We have Route 6, so that's always good. So it's always going to be a unique situation, but that's the trend. We're trying to make sure that we have some cohesive design. So the main tool that got approved the other night that we embedded into the zoning is called form-based code. Standard zoning really deals with the regulations of uses. Industrial here, residential there, commercial, retail here and there. We still retain those basic kind of segregation of uses, but form-based code focuses on the built environment. And that's really at the heart of it. People want to make sure, what is this going to look like? This new building, this new neighborhood, what's it going to look like? Is it going to fit in Eastham? And these codes are really trying to get to the heart of that. So it's organized around the physical forms of the buildings, how they relate to each other, how the sites are laid out, where the parking goes, and how it relates to the adjacent properties and so forth. And some of you may have heard me describe it this way. The form-based code is really like, it's like a recipe, it's like a cookbook. And we want the zoning code to read more like a cookbook. Here are the ingredients, here are the types of architecture that we feel fit in the community. Here are the types of materials, here are the kinds of roof pitches that are feasible here, and so forth. Here's what we want to see for landscaping and parking placement. If you read through the bylaw and you follow, and you're gonna redevelop your property, basically you can follow the recipe, and follow the ingredients. When you go to the planning or zoning board, hopefully there won't be a whole lot to talk about. You'll get your approval a lot quicker and easier, which is a benefit to the property owners and the developer, but it's also a benefit to the town because we're gonna have a more predictable development pattern. We don't have to react to, potentially negative, development where someone wants to come in and try to put a big box store or something like that, where it kind of prohibit those things, but also say, if you're gonna put a use in, you gotta follow the recipe. And if you do that, we're gonna come up with a good end result. And so really, that's the crux of what we're trying to bake into this, we call form-based code. A lot of the elements that were in the current bylaw remain in place. A lot of the work is really just trying to clarify some of the ambiguous language, strengthen certain things to make sure where there might be some loopholes, or someone might be able to put a development that would not be, in keeping with the character of the town. We want to tighten up that. And also, again, a predictable development pattern, a regulatory process. So that when people read this bylaw, hopefully they'll understand, follow the recipe. Here's what they're telling me the steps are. I do X, Y, Z, go to this meeting, that meeting, get my approval, and you're on your way. So that's, we're really trying to strive towards having a code that's more user-friendly. And so this just kind of illustrating the conventional zoning, as I said, it just deals with what uses are where in the town. Form-based code, what it's going to look like, and then there's a third part of this, which is design standards. And the planning board will be discussing, we have a separate document apart from the zoning bylaw, which is the planning board design and performance standards. So it's a companion piece to the zoning bylaw that gets adopted by the planning board. And it's basically a guideline that helps the board and develop and property owners navigate. Like it gives, where we're trying to have the bylaw be as clear and concise as possible, this is kind of a companion document that kind of fill in the details. Like, this is what we mean by X, Y, Z. And here's some best practices. So here's what we talk about, different types of materials, pictures, some more graphics, just to, again, help people navigate, give people a sense of this is what we're really trying to strive towards. So when you get when you're paying your architect and your engineer and so forth, hopefully you're not wasting your money redrawing and redrafting, because you've utilized all these tools, again, to have a more expedited process. So the design standards document will be taken up by the planning board. They can approve that. And again, that's actually a tool that we can update on a more regular basis. So as things come in, because you can't account for every eventuality that might come in. So if something comes in, a new trend or some kind of new use that we weren't prepared for in the zoning bylaw, you can actually address it in the guidelines, at least have an opportunity to put some arms around it where we think like, okay, whatever it might be. So that's so that's kind of our comprehensive approach to making sure the zoning is as sound as we can make it. So I won't read this whole thing, but this just gives an overview. Again, what was passed Monday at the town meeting. We made some changes to some specific properties, what zone they're in, most notably the Teton property. We changed that to make sure it was in a sub-district that it would allow for the types of things that we heard from the community, the mix of uses we wanted to see. That, so that's an example where the current bylaw didn't align with what we wanted to see. A big part of the land use table, making sure that it was as concise as possible. So we kind of consolidated a lot of things. We had a long list of uses, and barber shop, pet store, convenience store, all of these things that we listed out in a long, it's all retail. So we kind of simplify that. But what we did do is put in some extra lines dealing with housing. Because we want to make sure that this new district can support the kind of housing, we need to address the housing issues. So putting in specific allowances that will permit multifamily, some mixed use or top of the shop apartments, things like that. We want to make sure that it's clear in the bylaw that these things are permitted. So that we can have some more diversity of housing, a little more density where it's appropriate. But again, the trade-off is we may get some more different types of buildings, but the design guidelines and the form-based code make sure that it's going to look appropriate to these. It's not going to be big box apartments or things that are unsuitable to the community character. So it's the balance of allowing some new things, some added density, diversify the housing, but keeping the guardrails on where it's going to look to be set up to fit in with these. And again, that gets into, that's what we call missing middle. So 95% of our, really almost 98% of our dwellings in town are single family dwellings. And so there aren't options for people who are starting out and want to downsize. We don't have any apartments or anything like that. So this is trying to carve out a space in town where you could do a little bit different, something different than single family homes. A big piece of this too is it's trying to incentivize these other types of housing, but again with guardrails. So the new bylaw will allow some modest height increases, but with the requirement that if you're going to say build add a third story, maybe go to 35 feet as opposed to 30 feet. If you're going to do a mixed use building, well, I want to open a store on the first floor and I put some apartments. We'll let you go to 35 feet. You can actually get some more space. You can actually kind of get a story and a half. Lets you get maybe an extra unit. But that unit has to be a year-round rental, or it has to be an affordable, deed restricted affordable, or a seasonal workforce. And so it's required to be deed restricted so that we're not incentivizing more of what we frankly don't need, high-end luxury condos. We don't need those. We have to address our housing. So there's some incentives baked in there, but always with guardrails to make sure that it's going to look appropriate and provide the housing that's actually needed in town. I mentioned building materials, again, trying to make sure that we have that New England Village Center look and feel, but also trying to make sure that we can be flexible because it does add to costs. So there is provisions in the bylaw that let you have, alternate materials that mimic the look and feel that might be a little more cost beneficial. So trying to be flexible, it's a balance. Follow the cookbook, follow the recipe, but there are some substitutions. Again, important to note that this whole area is in our Zone 2 Water Resource Protection District. And so it's important that our industrial and our commercial overlap with really the most environmentally sensitive area in town. So the bylaw does have a lot of requirements for limitations on impervious surfaces, making sure that we're having environmentally friendly design, so natural stormwater recharge, landscaping, native plants, drought resistant planting requirements for all of these things are baked into the bylaw. And this isn't necessarily the kind of hardcore zoning, but it's related, the road network. What we are anticipating is that over time there's going to be new connections and some new roadways in this area. Most notably, now that the town has the Town Center Plaza and the Tea Time, we want to work with the private properties in between those two areas, see if we can actually make a connection there, some sort of roadway. It might be a 2-lane road, it might be a one-way street, it might be a bike path or a walking path, but some sort of connection to link the two town-owned properties, which will provide new opportunities for the private properties and businesses in that area. So it is a new roadway connector. However that might be, and that there's a lot of logistics and legality stuff that goes into that, but just, we want to make sure the zoning supported the concept that could happen. And over time, we build these connections to get the traffic off Route 6, so you can park at Town Center Plaza with whatever's going to happen there and be able to walk the length and go to these different stores and restaurants without having to get in and out of your car. It also opens up the opportunities for these businesses to benefit in that as these properties redevelop, and a lot of them, as we know, are, a lot of the properties eventually will need to redevelop the building and the site. They don't necessarily have to start from scratch. They all have to put in a new parking lot or, shared services, shared circulation with parking, with trash and recycling areas, common parking. It opens up a lot of possibilities when you factor in the town properties where public-private partnerships can come in. And maybe the town can absorb some of the parking burden so that, again, the new restaurant doesn't necessarily have to put in a 50 space parking lot, and then the next guy over has to do a 30-foot. Consolidated services is what we're trying to do. So we want the zoning to be prepared for that. And that's really the next phase of the planning work for myself and my department is really, as these properties redevelop, we start working with the owners to facilitate this kind of partnership. Like, we don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel every time down the road that everyone does it. We can do some pre-planning and kind of lay the groundwork there. Start to consolidate these things, cost sharing, like that. So, the Brackett to Tea Time connection, again, looking at Holmes Road. Holmes Road is our industrial area. We definitely need every square foot of industrial trade space we can, but the end of Holmes Road is vacant, and there's a lot of potential that we could probably work with the property owner there. Maybe extend Holmes Road, connect it out, have a new section of road, maybe to connect out to Route 6. That whole area could absorb additional trade space. It's also maybe conducive to additional multifamily dwellings. And again, we have to work with the property owner. We want to make sure the zoning anticipates that, and that if we are successful, we can have some sort of roadway extension so that the uses there can come and go, connect to Brackett, not necessarily have to be tied to Route 6, because that's a major part of this. Obviously, we're always looking to improve traffic safety on Route 6, take as many cars as we can off Route 6. And again, Brackett Road itself, that's really where, in my opinion, we have the greatest potential to kind of create that more traditional New England Village Center along Brackett Road. Route 6 is going to be right down the middle of our town. We can't do anything about that. And yes, we will have some improvements over time, hopefully sidewalks and safety and aesthetic upgrades. But Brackett Road is really the area where, over time, as things redevelop, this is what the zoning requires, that you move buildings close to the road. Parking goes behind, so we have street trees and sidewalks, and hopefully a good mix of restaurants and stores and apartments above, so that you get an actually cohesive village center with people living and working in there. And we have, this goes back to the deed restriction. So if you're gonna try to maximize the potential, maybe add a little bit of extra height, get those apartments so you can house your employees or whoever. They're gonna be affordable for workforce or year-round rentals. So that's kind of there's a lot of stuff in the zoning. Just want to kind of give an overview so I some of the details about what actually everyone agreed to Monday night. The other piece that got approved at the town meeting was changes to our accessory dwelling unit bylaw. This really reflects changes that were needed because at the state level, the state is redoing through their housing bond bill, trying to expand affordable housing. And one of the keystone pieces of that was basically making accessory dwelling units a by right use. What that means is that you treat ADUs basically the same as you would treat a single family. Well, if you're in a residential district, as long as you conform to your septic and your setbacks and any other dimensional issues, you're entitled to build your single family home. And so a lot of times ADUs were classified as this other use where you had to get a whole special permit. And it opens it up to a lot of discretion on the part of the board and neighbors and potentially a lot of roadblocks. So the state basically said, for residential areas, you're entitled to an ADU as long as you adhere to any of the local regulations and septic. That's kind of the crux of it. Our ADU bylaw, we were kind of ahead of the state, which is good. We basically allowed ADUs by right in all of the districts except the Seashore District. We kept that as a special permit because it's got its own unique issues, but basically we needed to change that. So basically our residential district, the Seashore, and there's a couple other districts, that are essentially residential. They're all allowed by right. Yes,
How many ADUs do we have right now or in process?
since when we changed our local bylaw last time with, 2019, we have permitted, what's the- 27, and I believe 17 or 18 have been actually kind of completed. Sometimes people, projects don't materialize or they change it and they say, but yeah, I think we've got 17 or 18 that have been fully permitted. So what our bylaw,
No, and they're required to be here, but this was
Yeah.
a little bit tossed around at town meeting, and they're required to be year round.
yes, we require them to be a year-round rental, so either owner occupied or year-round rental. This is a little bit of a short language at the state level, and that gets a little tricky to try to explain, but the state, with all the new regulations, they said you can allow these ADUs by right, we want you to allow them by right. And we will allow the towns to prohibit them from being short-term rentals, which is great, and we already do that. But the way the language is written, it doesn't necessarily say that you can require them to be year-round rentals. Because the state looks at that as like, we're trying to not put any restriction on it. So they look at it as like, if you make someone be a year-round rental, you're putting an undue burden on it. And I think this is something we're trying to clarify at the state level with, the Cape and like the Berkshires. We have a unique situation where it's like, you need to have that language in there. So it kind of leaves this gray area where it's like, if I'm putting the ADU in, yes, I can't short-term rent it, which means that's 31 days or less. But if we're not making you rent for 12 months, you're in this gray area where someone could, kind of play games and, well, okay, I'll rent it for 3 months. I'll rent it as a summer rental for anything in between more than 30 days and less than 12 months. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And
So,
are there any rent restrictions, like other affordable, is this for affordable housing at all, or could they just charge an arm and a leg and it doesn't income for people who live there? Do you know what I mean? Are there any of those?
so we don't have any income restrictions on our ADU bylaw. We did in the original version. We did, and that bylaw did not get utilized. And I think the reason was people, they're gonna put a unit in, they want some control over who they can rent to, and there's also a lot of paperwork, which means you gotta file with the town, you gotta track this stuff, so that's why we took that away, because really, the goal is to create units. Like I said, we have 95% single-family dwellings, there's nowhere to go. So we just want to create units so that the supply goes up, and hope that, enough units are out there, the rents will kind of self-regulate, so it's an iterative process. So right now, we're saying this, let's make it as easy as we can to make these ADUs, just to get the inventory and some options up. I anticipate that over time, we may have to go back and, we're really successful when we get these things, and we still may need to calibrate the bylaw to address the affordability. But right now, we don't. And just to finish up on the year-round piece, so what we did and what got approved at town meeting is we left the language that we currently have, which basically says you have to be a year-round rent. You're living in it yourself as the property owner, or you're renting it year-round. We left that in there. What happens is, these got approved at Monday's meeting. All these zoning bylaws, they get sent to the state attorney general's office. They do a legal review. They basically approve it, or if there's inconsistencies with state law, there's a whole other process. We have to amend it, or they may strike certain sections. So we left everything in there, and basically we'll hoping that we'll figure out with the AGs, and this relates to the Seasonal Communities Act, which also got approved. So the rationale for leaving that language in there is because the seasonal communities designation allows towns to adopt it to do these things, acquire year-round rental agreements and things like that. So our tactic is leave it in there. When we have our exchanges with the AG, if they question it, we say, well, we also adopted seasonal, and you're kind of. So I wanted to leave it in there rather than take it out and then have to fight for it back. Because it's always harder to put something back in after yourself.
Under that seasonal community, program, there was something to do with, utilizing small lots and having tiny homes and so forth. How's that going to be implemented?
So the two requirements are, if we adopt it, is we have to do some regulations that allow undersized lots to be developable. What that means is, in our cases, our standard lot size is 40,000 square feet an acre. Most of the lots in town were created prior to that, so most of the lots in town are well below there. Most of them are 20, 25. But we also have a lot of things that are lots that are 10,000, 15, 5,000. So we have to basically carve out in the bylaw where we would allow, and those necessarily wouldn't be developable if they don't have the minimum lot size. So we have to carve out in the bylaw some options so that they could be developed. But if we do that, we can restrict those. If we're to develop an undersized lot, it can be restricted to be an owner occupied or year-round rental or something like that, so that they couldn't be short-term rentals. So that's why it's opening up options, but allowing us to put some controls on it, so it just doesn't say, okay, well, now one undersized lot, I can like build some, you know,
Or do you have different setbacks or something of that nature?
that'll be part of the discussion about how do we handle these undersized lots, and we may want to calibrate the setbacks to that. So that's the undersized lots. The other part was the tiny homes. The way I look at it, there's kind of two different. A tiny house is just a single family home. It just happens to be small. So we actually don't have anything that prohibits someone from building a small house as long as you meet the minimum standards for health and safety and building code. We don't have anything anyways that says you have to build, you know, it has to be 1,200 square feet or, so I don't really think there's too much to do on that. There's another category of tiny homes, which are kind of these mobile tiny homes where it's like you kind of convert trailers and things, and you know, you see a lot of that on DIY villas and things. We need to carve out space in the bylaw where those would be allowed by right in some way, shape, or form. So that's on the to-do list. And I should mention, all this bylaw work, I haven't been doing it myself. So we have a zoning task force in town, which I've been working with for a few years. There's representatives from the zoning board, the planning board, and the housing trust, and a few large members. And so this has really been a group effort, looking at all these bylaws, doing the research. And kind of every year that task force has a list that we come up with. And so those two items will be on the zoning task force list to look at.
Is there a typical size for an ADU? I'm trying to visualize the difference between an ADU and a tiny home.
Yeah, so, and that'll be kind of figuring that part out. The change that we made was to conform with what the state
Oh, I see.
is. So we actually allow 1,200 square feet or 50% of the gross floor area. We changed that to limit it to 900 square feet. It's really to deal with these, and this gets to the difference between an ADU and a tiny home. The ADU is by definition an accessory, so it has to be accessory to a single family, a primary dwelling. So you might just build your primary dwelling as a tiny home. This would probably have to figure out, that may be problematic where you then want to do an ADU, but 50% of your tiny home is gonna be a closet, so we have to calibrate that.
Is it whichever larger or smaller?
Whichever's small, yeah. So we did that.
Whichever is smaller.
We did that because we're trying to just kind of be in line with the state, just for clarity and ease of reference and all that. But we also found, and Dave's on the planning board, so he's familiar with this, but some of the ADUs that have gone through prior, they're on the large side, and it's kind of, when you're looking at it, it's like, which one's the ADU, which is the one, so, you know, technically they were within the limits and everything, but we just kind of step back and say, these are really supposed to be accessory and subordinate to, in look and feel and size to the main house. And that's one of the, ADUs aren't gonna solve our whole housing issue, but one of the, what reasons it's a good tool is because you can infill these things where there's already development, we don't have to do vacant lot, and they're supposed to match in with the neighborhood,
Right.
so. That's why we switched the size to that. And so again, these are in red, these are just some of the kind of housekeeping adjustments we did. For alignment with the state and also just to kind of fix a few loopholes.
Is the seashore gonna allow ADUs?
Well, that remains to be seen. So I did have discussions with the seashore. My take on it is that we have a unique situation. We have local jurisdiction, our local bylaw, and we have the federal regulations. We try as best we can to be cohesive, but we are responsible to be in line with the state, that the state's telling us to do. And so when you look at the definition of the seashore district, it is a residential district. And so what the state's saying is any district, it doesn't matter what it's called, if it's a residential district in use, should be allowed ADUs by right. Now this is where it really comes down to a case by case basis. And everybody who owns property in the seashore, if they're doing anything to the property, it's at their own risk because the seashore, so we look at it like, does it conform with the state regulations and our local regulations? That's what we're responsible for. That's where our local planning board and zoning board of health are responsible for that. So we look at it under that lens. We do try to work with the seashore staff. So we always send everything, someone's doing a project in the seashore, we send all that info to the seashore staff, ask for any comments, and they have an opportunity to questions and concerns, and the property owners are aware of that. So at some point, it comes down to, as a property owner, you may get an approval from the town that may run afoul of the seashore, but it's really on between the seashore and the property owner, and whether the seashore will take any action or not. So we try to avoid that, but at the end of the day, we're not responsible for the federal regulations. We have to do what the states executive. That's really what we did. So, but things may change. They may they may carve out, say this is a unique situation and have a different thing for the seashore. So waiting to hear from somebody at some level. Any other questions on the ADU? So I just want to dip into the strategic plan. Last time I was here, the strategic plan update, we're still working on the update. Taking a little bit longer than I had planned on, but obviously all the zoning stuff, I kind of reprioritize some things. So we are almost done updating our 5-year strategic plan. Just a reminder, we have a strategic planning committee that's got some good representation from different committees. Myself and the town manager work closely with this committee. And the approach to the new plan, which will cover 2025 and 2030, is we wanted to use the current 2024 plan as a framework. We're not throwing the whole thing out. So we're keeping the guiding principles. We are adding in some new focus areas to deal with, a lot's happened in the last 5 years. So we want to make sure we're addressing climate issues and a lot of stuff with municipal services. But the real key is that we have so many individual management plans, harbor plan, housing plan, wastewater plan. They all have good stuff in them. A lot of work went into those plans. They all have recommendations and best practices and action items. We went through all those plans and the best we could try to go through and what are priority things from each of these plans that should be elevated into the overall strategic plan so that they're all nested together. And so when you're reading the strategic plan, you're really saying, these are the top of the top things from all the other areas. And as you know, there's a lot, there's so many things going on in town, environmental, zoning, land use, so we just wanted to make sure the plan got embedded with all this other work, and that these other plans don't sit on the shelf. It's hard to prioritize because everyone's natural tendency is, well, everything in this plan is important, so there was a whole process working with the boards and committees and the staff to say, you gotta, what are the top 3, the top 5 things that are most important, or just logistically have to happen first, and move those into the strategic plan, and then we look for overlap, so that when you see certain projects, you know, it might be a town landing improvement. Okay, that's great, but where is the overlap? Well, if we update this town landing, there's 5 landings we gotta do, which one do we do first? Well, this one will fix the landing. It also may have a saltwater marsh restoration component, it might have a stormwater component, so if we do that one, we're gonna get, check off 5 boxes instead of the other one, which maybe is just 1 or 2. So that's why we're trying to build this into the plan, so that it helps the staff prioritize their own work and which projects should move forward, and also embed this into the budget process, so that when the towns, when we're doing our town projects and our town budget every year, we reference the strategic plan as the rationale, which, what do we do first? So that's kind of like, in my mind, the big thing with this update is getting those individual plans incorporated into it. And then there's a lot of model bylaws, especially my part of the plan with the zoning, land use development, the Cape Cod Commission work closely with. They have a lot of resources, model plans, best practices. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So a lot of the stuff with the commercial districts, a lot of work on the climate piece with properties on the seashore and how we're going to address those in the future when they come before planning and zoning board. There's a lot of stuff out there that we can look at, adapt as necessary for use of these standards. So that's a big piece, getting these model bylaws as action items. Look at this model bylaw, see if it fits for East Ham, if so, adopt it. And again, it's just trying to simplify the plan. I think last time I was here, I gave you a list. We had so many action items and sub-action items. The plan was just kind of unwieldy. And so what we're trying to do with this one is we kept our guiding principles, basically the same goals. We consolidated some of the goals. So it's just some slight rewording to make them a little broader. But then the last box here is the strategic focus area. So within the environment, what are the top 3 things for the focus areas? And then within that, there's still action items which detail what specifically, what do we need to do in order of operation for a wastewater? We gotta do X, Y, Z. But we're just trying to kind of move the whole structure of the plan up a few notches, so we're not in the weeds. Because a lot of the stuff that was in the old plan is really stuff that at the staff level happens. We don't need to itemize who's gonna apply for which grants and do that stuff. So we're trying to keep this a little bit higher level. And again, make sure that it's a tool that the staff can use. So every year when they go through, say, what are we doing? What's the budget gonna reflect? Is it in the strategic plan? And if it's not, does it need to be? And that's where the role of the strategic planning committee itself will come into play, where the plan's updated, but we don't want this plan to just be done for 5 years. We're setting it up so that this is gonna be updated basically on the fly. So projects are gonna get completed, they'll come off. What do we got waiting in the wings? There's a bit of a vetting process, so staff can come in and say, I got that project done, here's my top 5 things. Here's how they align, here's what the overlap is, and the committee can kind of help them formulate what goes in. And so this thing kind of just gets updated on the fly. And obviously things come in out of nowhere, new opportunities that no one was anticipating. It's another way we can kind of incorporate it. Should we buy this property or not, or should we, you know, whatever it might be. So that's kind of the approach we're gonna take with this new plan. Timeline, over the last year, I met with a number of groups and committees, including this group last year. Going forward, we will be having a public information session on May 22nd at the library. We're trying to be as user-friendly as possible. So this, we did this different format when we did the zoning workshop, and it worked well. We're gonna do it again. So on the 22nd, we're gonna do a presentation at 4 to 5:30. And then question and answer, we'll take a break. Then we're basically gonna do the same presentation after that. So that way people, you don't have to be 4 to 7 in the block. So you can come in halfway through, you can stay and catch the whole thing. just to be a little more flexible. Someone can't be there right at 4, you come at 5:30. And we'll have plenty of time for people who arrive to questions and answers. We're also, we'll have some food. We're also providing, free childcare. The rec staff will be there, so we're trying to get parents and folks can come and not have to worry about watching the kids and getting dinner ready, so we'll have food and stuff. So we actually did get a good turnout when we did this format with the zoning. We got some younger folks, there, so,
Is there any availability for remote?
yeah, we'll have Zoom and everything also.
Because sometimes at the library, they're not able to do like a remote thing.
Yeah, as far as I know, I'm planning on it, unless there's some technical thing that comes up, but I'm planning on having. Zoom.
Live remote.
Yeah. As long as
Again,
as long as we can do it, I think we can, so. If we can't do that for some reason, we will be recording it, so it'll be available. So we'll have a public information session. We'll put the whole plan out for a public comment period. Do any revisions that need to be done, and then really the plan is to get it back to the select board for their final review and adoption in the fall. And, it'll be in place. And then, like I said, we'll have quarterly meetings with the committee so that we keep this thing fresh and updated and, make it more of a living document. And my last piece, and I'm happy we can circle back to anything you like after, but I just want to point out a couple things on affordable housing. So at the town meeting on Monday, we approved funding for the 580 Massasoit Road project, so Community Preservation Act funding. The goal of this money is to be used for doing the historic rehab of that, and this is important for this group because the first floor is where the COA thrift shop lives. So we want to make sure that that building is preserved and that it's preserved for historic purposes, but also it's safe and it meets all the building safety codes. So this money will be used in the exterior, do some structural things. There's a second floor apartment there that really, the apartment itself is good condition, but the building itself, overall, it needs to have a fire suppression system. There's some structural things that kind of affect both the first floor and the second floor. So this money will get the building to where it needs to be so that COA can continue to operate there. And the second floor, we can actually get that rented out as an affordable unit. So that was a great piece in the town meeting. The other piece at town meeting, the approval of the real estate transfer fee, or at least the approval to petition the town, the state. So again, this approval that Monday basically just said, giving the town approval to approach the state to say, let us put in this legislation that allows the town to put this fee in on real estate transfers. And again, it's transfers that on real estate that are over $1 million, you could do a 1 to 3% fee on the amount, just the amount over $1 million. So if it's $100,000 over, fee is just on $100,000.
that falls on the buyer or the seller?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I guess that's part of when the, I don't know. But we want to have that in place because that's going to provide funding that will be reserved for additional housing, affordable housing units. The other piece, just a reminder that we have several housing assistance programs up and running. The rental assistance program for income qualified, it's a 3-year program, up to 3 years. It provides monthly rental assistance and also case management assistance to help if you need help getting your finances in order or whatever is going on. That program's been running for a number of years. There is capacity in it, so please spread the word if you know somebody who's.
We still have capacity?
No, we have capacity. We have enough money.
So there's room for new people
Yes,
to join
absolutely, yep.
if needed.
Yep, so spread the word. And that's for anyone not new rent, even if you know someone who's been in their place for 20 years and now they're just having the new rentals, people who've been renting all along, anyone can sign up for that. The other program that's been up and running is emergency loan home emergency loan program. That's for major repairs, so if you're having trouble financially, you gotta replace your roof, your water heater, major components, windows, things. You can get, 0% interest forgivable loan to help defer that cost.
Is that the money for the state? Or is that our
This,
own money?
all of this money comes from the CPA, Community Preservation.
All of it, even the repair, so that's
Yep.
different than the, oh,
Yeah, so if we end up getting the transfer fee, that could be money that could bolster those programs and fund other that'll have to be worked out if and when it happens, but, potentially, that's another pool of money. And the Lease to Locals program is, brand new. It's going to be rolling out, in the next few weeks. This is a program where we're basically paying landlords to not rent seasonally. So if they commit for a certain amount of time to rent year round, we will basically pay the money to help offset, to even out the money. Obviously, you can make a lot more money. We're just trying to like entice people. But I think so there is no income qualification to this. Similar to the ADUs, we're just trying to get units created, just units. We need units. We're not necessarily worried about the rents at this point. But what we hope will happen is that because we're not putting any, and this is payments to the landlord, property owner. What we're hoping will happen is that somebody who, they might be a lawyer or a doctor somewhere who's renting a little basement apartment, they can actually afford to rent something bigger and better for more money. Well, we're hoping that this kind of opens up the floodgates a little bit to say, well, now somebody who's, maybe they got a nice piece of property on the beach and that doctor can afford that. They're gonna move out of that small apartment when then someone else who at a lower rent. So we're hoping that this kind of entices people to, the deck gets shuffled a little bit so we can get some new units created, but also the other units open up so that kind of better place, because we do have a lot of folks that there's no apartments, there's nowhere to rent, and they are overpaying for what they are. So the thing, what I like about these programs though, the rental assistance and the Lease to Locals are interchangeable also.
I'm sorry.
The rental assistance and the Lease to Locals, they could overlap. Because you may have a property owner that says, you know what, I don't wanna do seasonal rentals, too much wear and tear, I got people coming and going. I'll partner with the town, they're gonna pay me some money, I'll get someone local year round, they're not gonna be, that might be worth it to them. But I need to charge, I gotta charge what I gotta charge. And it might be more than someone can afford, well, potentially, maybe someone goes in there, I need the unit, I need somewhere to live, I can't afford the rent, well, the landlord's getting the lease to rent. The tenant can sign up for the rental assistance to cover the difference, at least for a certain amount of time, so we're trying, so in that way, these programs can work together.
So the housing staff, there's gonna be any matchmaking, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, so the Lease to Locals program is going to be run by a company called Place Me. And so there's the whole business model for this with companies that do this, and so we put this out to bid and we're going with a company, Place Me, and so they actually run the program. They do all the admin, so they advertise the units, they do some matchmaking, people sign up to be on kind of the wait list or the alert list.
so they advertise the tenants.
Yeah, they do all of that. And so this program's been running in P-Town and in Nantucket, and so far everything we've heard has been successful. They have on Nantucket, they have a waiting list of landlords who want to be on it. So this will be a pilot program. They piloted at the other towns and we'll pilot it this like 1 year, successful. Hopefully we'll identify some funding to keep it going. And again, trying to tie all these things together. This goes back to if we have CPA money or a new pool of money with the transfer fee, these are all things that we can then budget so the programs can, if they're successful, we think they will be sustainable and will have a sustained funding source. So the Lisa locals will be coming on board very soon. I think they're just getting the final paperwork ready. And we're actually partnering with the town of Orleans on the admin piece. So Orleans is gonna be rolling this out, and we're working together, so we actually save money on the admin piece, sharing that cost. But then they basically will, they administer the two towns separately, but pay one cost for running the program. So that worked out great for us.
What's the name of the company?
Place me.
Like,
So if two individuals, residents of Eastham, form a limited liability company and buy a property, it's for locals to live in, and they're gonna lease the property to the locals, does that LLC get money back from the town? I'm just trying to, I totally support individuals leasing their homes, but I'm very concerned about these corporations coming in and investing.
So,
And then we, the townspeople, and our taxes are paying them to lease the locals. That's not fair.
so last year at town meeting, we had another adjustment to the zoning and the general
Which
bylaw.
I attended, but.
Yes, so we actually limited, in some cases prohibited, corporate ownership or short-term rentals, but then also limited the amount of short-term rentals.
But this would be year round, right? This is all for year round.
This is, yes,
This is for year round.
but there's a limit, there's a prohibition on rentals for corporations. And then within that, the ones that already exist, there's a limit as to how many short-term rentals you have. So if you're over, so like, if you wanted to add to your, one of these entities want to add to their portfolio, if they're already, they can't go over two, so they would only,
Right, there was a long article. in the
yeah,
Times.
they would have to, if they want to do it, they would have to rent it year.
I have one other question on the transfer fee for sales over $1 million. I have a friend who lives in Eastham, who's a real estate agent, and he publishes a newsletter every month about the numbers of sales and the numbers of properties that are for sale. And I think that last month he said that the median price for homes in Eastham was like something like $850,000 sale price. That creeps up close to $1 million, and it's not necessarily the people who are selling their homes. So does that $1 million level, does that adjust for things like inflation over time, or is it just, that's gonna be it? Because it's gonna hit a lot of people
So
eventually.
the regulations haven't been written yet. So this is just what got approved at Monday's meeting was just the community authorizing the town to petition for this. So that's why the program and the regulations, the rules haven't necessarily been written yet.
Didn't that get put into the legislature last year, but never made it?
Right.
So you're just reinstituting.
Yeah, so that was one, yes, that was one of the things with this, all this new housing regulation that the ADUs and everything. And that was something that at the state level, they were trying to get this just like codified so that it was just universal. That didn't make the cut at the state level, which is why we have to petition the state basically for permission to put this in. So
So the state will write the regulation?
no, we would, the state gives us, because it's basically asking, we have to ask the state for permission to collect a new fee.
Mhm. The fee collection, all of that is okay, it's just not okay if it starts to hit the middle class, teachers, firemen.
I think it's an important point, and there were a couple of questions raised at town meeting about that, about
I
having some.
couldn't attend Monday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so you're hitting on things that were brought up at the meeting, which are good points, and I think you said the actual
Mhm.
program hasn't been written yet, so I think those are things that need to be taken into account, inflation or indexing or something like that, so. To be honest, I'm not involved directly in that, so I wanted to mention just because it's related to housing, but this is all gonna be more work to do. Again, just to finish up, so just in Orleans at the old Cape Cod 5, headquarters, new housing development, 62 apartments. And I believe they're accepting applications open to the general, public. They've done their local preference lotteries, so now it's opened up, so,
Well, we part of local, we gave money for that project, right?
yes, we did.
Did we get any local preference units?
The way it works is, yes, yeah, they factor in, I don't know what the number was on that project, but it's usually, they have a percentage for the town and then the percentage local preference for the region. So you kind of. Folks,
So
these towns
Orleans
were
first,
eligible.
and then other
Yeah.
towns that gave money?
Yeah. They don't do it by the money because they can't do it that way. They basically say that the region, so basically it's the Cape. You can't target it specifically.
And what about off-pay, were they able to apply?
After the initial, so all this local preference stuff, it's the initial rental, the initial round.
Yeah,
And so if the initial rental, you get the local town and then the regional pool. If 100% of those folks all income qualify and pass the vetting and whatever needs to go into it, then yeah, potentially like that whole unit would be, the whole place would be occupied with, local regional folks, but that's basically never the case because everyone who applies for local preference doesn't necessarily make the cut for whatever reason, income quality or whatever. So then after that, it gets opened up to the general. Basically to anybody, but then after the initial rent up, the local preference goes away, so like.
so the
if
wait
you-
list after that is.
Yeah, then you go to the wait list, which is open to anybody, so like if someone moved out of the apartment after that initial rental, it's just, yeah,
Who's the management company?
Penrose.
Same one, Penrose.
And then my last point, just a reminder, there is a community health and wellness fair at the Elks. And Rachel Butler, who is our housing coordinator, will be there, tomorrow. So she's the one who really knows the ins and outs of all the housing programs. So she'll be there, she'll have information, she'll be available. If you or, anyone want to stop down there, they have questions, she'll be able to talk through more specifics on all this stuff. I think that's all I had, and I'm happy to circle back to anything and everything you might want to talk about, answer any questions or.
Something I'd like to follow, if you go back that, it's the first floor, it's the Friends of the East End Council on Aging that actually runs. the
Oh,
thrift
yeah,
shop.
you're right,
So
sorry.
as opposed to the Council on Aging, and I know it's very confusing. for
No, but
folks,
you're
But
right,
it is
sorry,
the Friends that
absolutely.
runs that thrift shop.
I guess it's a question about, donate to some degree. When somebody wants to donate land, or let's say open space, and they get CPA funds, kind of thing, do they look at it to see whether it would be better used for development? Because supposedly the town's built out, and you don't have places for more houses or apartments or whatever. However, you put all the land that we have into open space, and we don't have any place for building. So is there some kind of criteria that's looked at before it's just allowed to be bought up and put in open space?
You mean on the town, level, like if someone wants to sell or donate to the town? We have kind of an informal process where we kind of have a working group with the housing folks in the housing trust and open space committee and staff. We've actually tried to go through and identify the open spaces, and we kind of have a working list of like the ones that are clearly better for open space because of environmental issues. Those that would be housing, and then maybe some that could accommodate these are both. We kind of have a working list. And we did that because we don't have actual criteria or process, but we at least wanted to go through, so to at least avoid jockeying for which one, so we kind of already had some mutual agreement about if this were to come up, kind of where it would fall, so we'd be able to make a decision quickly without having to. So that's kind of what we've done in the past. Any other question, you let me off easy.
Just a quick observation. Other places I've lived in related to housing, there's something called a shared housing program. So it wasn't one person renting a separate unit to another person. It was two people sharing the same space. Someone said something about kind of like matchmaker or what have you. So maybe it was someone who was needing some assistance with running errands or cooking or, you know, like housekeeping, that kind of thing. And in exchange for a reduced rent or something, then someone could live within that space. I don't know if such a program, and then there were some nonprofits who would kind of like broker that relationship and do a background check and that kind of thing. So it had some formality to it. So, just didn't know if there was something, you know, program like that on the Cape or the East End area.
Not Eastham, and I don't know if other towns have it.
Right.
That's a good, that might be something we add into the, program list. Yeah, if you have any info or any towns that you know, just, let me know or let Rachel know.
Okay, yeah, that was back in California, back to Oregon, was doing shows. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, I appreciate you.
Yeah, and maybe have to do now. Find your deed first. I promise not to tell my husband.
I got your stuff,
I'm just.
yeah, is that your stuff? Yeah. Okay. I thought you
That-
wasn't sure where you
That
sat,
is
so-
still on the table.
Okay,
The
bye-bye.
community development.
Yes,
Is actually looking at, and they did a, report. I think they issued, they basically did feasibility. It couldn't work here and how would it work, so, yeah, that's definitely on the table. To see, like, how-
Did I hear that big, wasn't it?
I haven't heard, you may have more advanced
No, I can-
info than me, but I haven't heard anything about it. As far as, like, if you were looking at it, if it's viable, that's one of the many.
So if you're a first time landlord, like in my house, I don't rent seasonally, but if I want to get it year round. I have to still get a permit to come to be a rent.
Right.
So, right here. And it's a one time. It's right now. Have you guys enough to know?
We don't know with that, I didn't, or, yeah, that's Rachel.
Oh, Rachel, okay.
Yeah, she worked more closely on
The
the detail.
details. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks for coming, good to see you.
And thank you for at the town meeting, that was helpful with your information when you got up.
I was making sense. It's always good to know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes sense to hear, but then does it translate?
It translated.
Thank you.
So I'm assuming everything, you did them very well. Carolyn is still on. I'm assuming she might be away from her computer. But nobody has any questions from Zoom? Or did someone?
Nope, I didn't hear anyone.
Okay,
say.
so, okay, I guess we're done.
And then there were events.